I've been listening to your podcast for a long time, and I appreciate all the work you put into it because we get to learn a lot from what you do, from your interviews, but I'm sure you have learned so much over the years, and putting that knowledge into this form is really helpful for people.
Hello, and welcome to Beauty in the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Katherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. Now, today's special guest is Dr. Kristina Tansavatdi, and she is the only female facial plastic surgeon in Ventura County in Southern California, which is the most beautiful place, and probably in the United States. So Dr. Tansavatdi received her medical degree from Wake Forest University School of Medicine in North Carolina, and then completed an internship and residency training in otolaryngology and head and neck surgery at the University of Utah School of Medicine, followed by a fellowship in Cincinnati with a past president of the American Academy of Facial Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, otherwise known as AAFPRS. So Dr. Tansavatdi has contributed to numerous medical journals and textbooks and lectures at national meetings, and was recently chosen to become vice chair of the CME committee of the AAFPRS. She also donates her time to local organizations such as the Rotary Club, Meals on Wheels, and Face to Face, the National Domestic Violence Project. Dr. Tansavatdi, welcome to Beauty in the Biz podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for that long introduction. Boy, that must have been so hard to take that all information out. I will have to say, that needs to be updated. I was the vice chair, then I was the chair of the CME committee, and I have since been booted off the chair because there's a new chair, and I am so glad to hang off my shingles on that. That was it was a good experience to get to be both the vice chair and the chair, being involved in the national meetings and looking at making sure that the level of education, the amount of the conference at the conferences at a high level, and that we kept our accreditation with the ACCME. So that was important, and I think it's helpful to see that from the backside of things. Yeah.
Why facial plastic surgery? Did you grow up with facial plastic surgeons, or how in the world did you come up with that specialty versus all the others?
There's been no doctors in the family, actually. My dad's an engineer, my mom's an accountant, and there was this emphasis to go into medicine. And I actually look back now, in the fifth grade, I had a yearbook that said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I had here cardiologist or heart surgeon.
Oh my God.
And so I always knew that I wanted to do medicine, right? So fast forward, I was in high school, and the class that I remember the most was a summer school class. I wanted to do an elective, and I did art class, and we did charcoal painting as one of the final pieces that we had to do. And I loved it. Like, I fell in love with just doing charcoal painting because we were drawing a person's face, and the shadowing, the pupil, the light reflects off the pupil. That was just like amazing. Just, doing that with just a black, gray, and white, And then I went and decided to do, as I was in medical school, I have a twin sister. She's a radiologist. But while we were going through medical school, we actually matched the same medical school. She had all these ear problems and had to see ENTs. So that was a specialty that just came on the radar. So I did a rotation, got interested in, loved the anatomy of the neck. So complex. I said, you know what? I like challenging things. That's what I wanted to do. So I did ENT, went to Utah. And as I was finishing up my residency, I said, I'm going to regret it if I don't do a fellowship. And what do I like the most out of everything I did? Well, I loved the facial plastic side of things, and it was some of the reconstructive part of rhinoplasty, as well as scar revisions and things like that. And I was like, you know what? I want to do this. So I applied. Luckily for me, I got accepted by Dr. Devinder Mangat in Cincinnati, Ohio, and he was a mix of both cosmetic and reconstructive, but majority, 80% of his practice was cosmetic. And he encouraged me while he was there. He was like, look, you want to do private practice. I want you to go out and do private practice. And he had multiple fellows. He had done, at that point, I think I was his 26th fellow. Ooh. And he said that to every one of them. Of course, only a few ended up doing what he asked them to do. And I was like, you know what? I don't know. I don't know. But one good thing about the fellowship was that he traveled, he had a second practice in Vail, Colorado. So every time he went to Vail, he would take me too, and we would fly into Denver, and it would be a 2-hour drive to Vail. And every time we drove for that 2 hours, I spent that time asking him questions. How did you start your practice? What did you do when you first start? Like this was like the best way for me to like pick his brain and really understand the business side of facial plastic surgery. So it was really, that's where I learned the most.
That is absolutely priceless to get
Yeah.
it straight from and watch somebody else doing it.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own way of doing it, but for you to be cold at this and say, I don't even know where to begin because you've spent so much time on the surgical side. When you go solo, you've got to become a lot of different things. The manager,
Hmm.
the marketer, the leader, the,
Floor sweeper.
all of it. God, all of it. So how did you do it? You're from Southern California. So did you
I
just
am.
shop in your own neighborhood or what was your strategy?
Well, so I was still on the fence of do I join a practice and then build out my practice, or do I just go straight in? And he encouraged me to go straight in. I actually met with a fellow that was Dr. Perkins' fellow. He was close friends with Dr. Perkins, and the fellow with Dr. Perkins was going on to private practice too. She said, "You know what? Talk to the CPA firm that I use that's with Dr. Perkins, and they had a whole bunch of data from all their previous fellows of the first few years out of practice." So it allowed me to get a pro forma to see how much it would cost to build out the practice from scratch versus if I bought into a practice. So I knew the cost for both. And I said, you know what? It's about the same. So why don't I invest in myself? Do I believe in myself? Am I confident enough that I can do this? I said, you know what? I can do this. So I went out, first I interviewed in Utah. Luckily, the manager, there was like a partnership group there. And he said, you know what? Where are you originally from? And where's your family? I said, I'm from California. He goes, you know what? I'm going to tell you, I moved here with my family from California. You should go to where your family is. You need the support. That was the best words of advice. So then I went to California. Then I started researching there. And then I finally found, so Dr. Mangate had a friend that was at UCLA, and he had a side practice in Agoura Hills. And I asked him, and he goes, you should look out this area. Like Westlake Village is like a sleeping, like you don't even know that it's so beautiful. It's like Beverly Hills, very similar to Beverly Hills, very similar to Newport Beach, but it's like low key. And I'm so happy that I came to this area and found my little niche.
Good for you. But the performa though, coming from like Ohio and Utah is a little different. The real estate here in California is completely different. So,
Exactly. No, I did give them numbers. So I
okay,
gave
good.
them numbers as to what the build out cost might be, because then I had somebody look at it, like an architect and everything on the space, what the lease was going to cost. So yeah, I did get those numbers too.
But also like labor costs here, everything here is
I know.
insurance and
Yeah,
all that.
well, when I first started, it was just me and two part-time people. And I did locum tenens for a good while. I mean, like the first year or two, every other week I was flying out for
Yep.
locum tenens. And so for 4 days, I would have the phones transferred to my cell phone and I would answer the phones. And I would love it. I would be talking to a prospective new patient, and then they would start asking more and more questions. They're like, wow, you know a lot of information. I go, actually, you're talking to the doctor. And it would shock them, So
I actually that happens a lot. I don't know why. Thank you for being that transparent because a lot of the surgeons want you to believe they just open up shop and they're good to go. I guarantee most of them are working for Kaiser or some kind of Sonabella, or you have to moonlight. You don't have to. Most need a bridge,
yes.
between where they are now, where they want to be, and how do you get there. You
Mhm.
can't do a build out right away, usually, unless there's some family money or, or
Right. You got to
whatever.
ramp up. You have to pay for marketing. Nobody knows you. And it's crickets. It's crickets that first year. You're just like, is anybody going to come in and see me? Did I make the right choice? Right. So it's always a scary feeling. And particularly when I saw the build out happening, I was like, oh, I'm actually doing this. It's like burning the ships. It's like you
Yeah.
have no path going back now. This is the path I'm taking. I'm going forward once you start seeing the build out. So, yeah.
So I know recently you just introduced your new Quad A accredited surgical suite
Mhm.
or office or center. How big of a deal was that? Because California and permits do not get along at all.
Oh no, yeah. I was at the end of my 10-year lease and I had been looking for a space for a while. Like it took over a year to find the exact space. And at first, we thought we weren't going to even be able to build a surgical center. So I thought, the smallest space that was available was a 15,000 square foot space, and it wasn't in the prime location I wanted. I wanted to be in a certain spot of Westlake. So every little city has their little niche that looks, it's in front of people. It has a great signage. My current space, it was advertised 3,000 square foot space. And then I went and toured and we said, they were offering possible medical. Then they said the next door, their lease is up in a few months. I go, oh, so we could take that over? Yeah. So that was going to be 4,500 square foot space. Then I said, what about this tenant right here off to the side? Oh, they're a bunch of lawyers. I said, what are they? They're month to month. I said, are they open to moving? Are you open to having me be the whole tenant on the bottom? I said, yeah. So it was like, it went from 3,000 to 6,000 square feet space. So at first, when I thought, okay, no hope, we're just going to open another space and just have a office space, it went to, oh, this is possible. And I had a whole bunch of colleagues that I had encouraged to go from, doing ENT to going fully facial plastics. And they were like, you can do this. We opened our own surgical center. This was across the country, in Tennessee and in Atlanta. And they're like, no, you can do this. And I'm like, oh, they're like, yeah, you will not look back. Once you have your own surgical center, you will not look back. And I was like, best words of advice. I wish I opened sooner. But as I was finishing up my lease there, the surgical center I was working at, I had a nurse that I really liked, a nurse manager, and they ended up closing. And I was like, I said, she was like the best nurse manager I had ever met. And I was like, are you willing to come work for me? My space is not built out yet, but it is going to be built out and I need the accreditation. And she had run both a triple AHC and a quad ASF center. So, you just have to find the person who has the knowledge base, and it made it smooth. We worked with a group, Universal, and they were very, very helpful as well. So it just was smooth because I think of her experience. It really helped that she had all that experience. So
That was lucky that you noticed the connection there. Like,
yeah. Yeah,
oh,
it worked out.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So how long did the build out take? Was it as long as you expected? Was it double the budget that you expected? What was that like?
It always takes longer. Everybody needs to know this. Contractors are always going to say, yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be this many months. Sure enough, I don't even want to tell you all the things that went in that where it got delayed, right? But at the end, I was just so happy that, our landlord for this building, just so nice, so helpful because they actually have so many different locations and they are the tenant in so many different locations. So they kind of understood being the landlord and me being the tenant. So they've been so good as landlords, and I couldn't ask for better landlords. So they never had a doctor as a tenant, but they basically said, look, we can see that your current landlord where you're at, because I had a holdover from the lease because I was over the whole 10 years and they were starting to charge me every month. And it was like 25% more, then it was 50% more. And they're like, don't worry about it. We got you. But they had to push back on the contractor because the contractor was saying, oh, we need like a $100,000 handicap ramp to the street.
Oh my God.
And the landlord was like, no, we have our own contractor and we don't agree. So then we went back to the city and that delayed us probably by a month. But then the city said, nope, you don't need that.
Oh,
So, yeah, it was so crazy, so crazy. But sometimes contractors take on so many different jobs and they kind of push around jobs as they see fit so that they could do what they need to do in their time frame instead of our time frame, right? So, but yeah, it was delayed probably about 2 or 3 months, not too bad in the grand scheme of things. And we moved into here, didn't have any hiccups with a quad A accreditation. So, with all that and the cost was more than what was estimated, but not by much. So I kind of felt that, it was a good estimate going into it.
Mm.
And because I had the previous knowledge when I first opened, and then when I moved spaces within that same building, I knew what costs it would take, right? So I was being more realistic. Hey, I'm going to have this budget, but also have a little cushion because I know it's going to cost more than what they estimate.
Good job. I've heard a lot bigger delays in California than that. So
Yeah.
consider yourself lucky. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you have this huge space, and
hmm
some of it's surgical, and then some of it's non-surgical. How much of your practice is non-surgical?
So I have a provider. So I have a PA that works with me, and I pretty much like I will do only specialty injections. She has
Mm.
taken over much of the non-surgical side. I really need to do what I do best. Not that I don't like that side of the practice, but I have had patients who've been with me since the start, since I opened when I wasn't doing as much surgery. So I have such loyal patients and I want them to be handed over to somebody. So when I've handed them over, it's been such a like I don't just go, okay, now you're going to see my PA. So there was this whole process of, hey, I'm introducing you to my PA. Next time we'll be working together. And then now she's going to take over. So it's been that over the past year. So she started about a year ago and just pretty much transitioned fully to her now. She's brought in her own patients. She does a really good job with my patients. And it's really about finding the right provider who has the same cultural fit, who has the same vision as you do. And the way she practices and the way she sees patients is the same way, which is she's not going to go, okay, I think I can do injectables for this patient. Nope, you're a surgical candidate. I think you need to go see Dr. Tansavatdi. And so she's very good about that.
I think that's so important that everyone not like hang on to the patients because so many injectors do. They won't
hmm
come up, and I think, oh no, no, they'll come back. But right now they need surgery.
yeah. Yeah.
The cross promoting is so important because a cosmetic patient, most patients I know are not dying to shop around. They just want to
Yeah.
find a place they love. They love the providers. So they feel good there. They get a great result. Everyone knows their name, kind of thing. It's just.
Yeah. And a big part of it too is I have this when I'm in consultations with surgical patients, I know that they're going to be seeing other doctors, but I tell them, look, I'm going to give you what I recommend. And I'll tell you that surgery is not one answer. Surgery is probably going to reset your face back, but it does nothing to the aging process. So your face is going to continue to age. So you're going to need these maintenance treatments. You're going to need the non surgical side as well. So it's a hand in hand, it goes together, not just one.
That's a depressing talk. Yeah, because yeah, because you're thinking, "Finally, I'm gonna get a facelift and be done with all this." No, you're not. No, you're not. That's the beauty of our industry is you will continue to age and continue to need more of this. Now you need some staff to do this. It can't just be you and the PA. So any tips on hiring, firing, or motivating staff?
I'll have to say I've been in practice for 13 years. I'm still learning. I will say that hiring has gone better in the last 5 years. There's this
Oh,
one book that I really tell everybody to read, and that's called Who. I don't know if you've heard of it by
oh,
Jeff Smart.
yep, yep.
It's really set this whole system for us. But before you even know that, it's like knowing what your values are. What are your core values? What's your mission? And then, because just as important finding a person who has the skills to do that job, more important is, are they the right person for the job? Meaning, are they a fit for your organization? Do they um, match you in terms of your values, your core values? Because if they don't, then you're not being authentic. Because one of my core values is authenticity with the patients, and they can see that. They see that when they come in. The best compliment I can receive usually is my patient will say, I love your staff. They are just a great reflection of you. And I go, that's how I chose them, right? Because it's important. Like even my nurse manager now, she takes over a lot of the hiring, but she's used the same system, which is using the Who system, that book, and we have a whole thorough process. So we have a screening question interview, then we have an in-person interview, we have a shadowing process. We want them to be a fit for us as much as we are a fit for them, because if it's not a fit, somewhere down the line, it's going to show, right? So that's part of it. But then it continues on. So we do a personality profile testing as well. I don't know if you've heard of DISC. We are very fond of DISC. And then besides after the DISC is they also have to do a writing sample for me. So as much as, in this day and age, everybody's texting and stuff, I want a good writing sample from them because your communication is huge in this business. So you have to be able to communicate clearly and well with patients because that's what they're seeing, right? So for me, a writing sample, and then after that, reference checks. Can't forget the reference checks. And then after the reference checks, when they come in, it's the onboarding process. So the first day they come in, we go over the mission, the vision, and the values with them. So right off the bat.
Hello, it's Catherine. If your practice feels busy but you're not seeing the growth you expected, there's usually a reason, and it's often something small that's quietly costing you revenue. That's why I offer a practice growth review. Now, in this call, I'll take an objective look at your patient flow, conversion process, and retention strategies to identify where opportunities may be slipping through the cracks. You'll walk away with a clear picture of what's working, what's not, and the few changes that could make the biggest difference. If you'd like an unbiased set of expert eyes on your practice, simply visit catherinemaley.com to schedule your review. As a consultant, I usually start with the vision and the values and the mission statement. And most of the time, I get this, could we just move on to something else? Could we just skip that part? I don't think a lot of leaders, let me say surgeons who had to become leaders, take that very seriously. It's everything. It all starts with the leader. And let's say one of your values is integrity. That's really important for people coming on board to know that you're all about integrity. So if you're one of those staff who think you're going to come in and embezzle, this is not the right practice,
Exactly.
I would just get real practical with this and say, this is what I find important. And this is how I need my staff to be. One of the surgeons said to me, he does this motivational talk with the staff and he says, I'm just going to tell you right now, this is like their first day. I'm just going to tell you right now, I don't like lazy people. I don't like people. Like he just went right, but he runs a killer practice. And he said, but he also meets with them regularly. But he's all about, this is what I expect. These are my standards of excellence. And you have to tell staff that, or otherwise they get to set their own boundaries. And that's what
exactly. Exactly. I think it's important to have a regular cadence of meetings, but not too many meetings too. And one of the things I've learned over the years is I've gotten in my own way. I don't know how many you hear of surgeons who they just want to get all these things done. So some of my team would be like, I don't know what the priority is, Dr. T. You keep saying you want this, you want this. And I have learned now I need to be a better delegator. So over the last few years, it's just been like, step out. This is not my role. You hired them to do this job. Let them do their job, and that's a big part of it too.
I would also say you surgeons have your hands full right now because of all the changes in marketing. Usually surgeons always just back off marketing, and now you are the marketing. So I would just say I would get a buffer between you and the staff. If at all possible, get somebody else to deal with the weeds. Somebody's got to do the weeds, and that's operations and admin. and most surgeons don't want to do that. It's not your wheelhouse, It's easy, but well, you tell me, what's the biggest challenge of running a solo practice?
When you have so many different people. So when I practice was small, not as much a problem, right? Because we could all communicate. When it becomes bigger, it's hard to make sure that you are clear with your communication and somebody heard it correctly, and then it gets passed on, and we all work as a cohesive team. It's hard to run a 10-person. So the number of staff I have is right now, my team is 10 people. And so it's hard to get everybody together on the same page. So we do have our, every morning we have a clinic, we have a morning meeting, a morning huddle, as you should say it. And it takes about, 10, 20 minutes to go through the patients, but that way we're all on the same page. And it's really important that everybody speak up. So sometimes I'm running through the schedule, and I'll have actually the medical assistant run through the schedule. So they feel that they have control, right? It's in that they're handling it. And so, it really is about handling the whole team together, that we're all working in sync. Yeah.
Oh, good for you. And just give me one big mistake, because I know nothing's perfect. Give me one big mistake that you really learned a lot from, or others could learn from.
I don't know if I could put one, but how about I give you two? one for
Okay.
sure would be opening the surgical center. I wish I had opened it earlier.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say nobody's regretted having their own.
No, I
Okay.
mean, despite the cost of building out, it's been so beneficial in terms of efficiency and also in terms of controlling the level of excellence I wanted for my patients. The customer experience, that patient experience was very important to me. And so I couldn't do that until I had my own surgical center. I can't look now looking back, I'm like, why didn't I open it sooner? So that's the number one mistake. The second would be learning about how to hire well. So if anything, that's a certain thing that keeps coming up. Common theme that comes up from people I talk to, from colleagues, is like, oh, about this employee, or how I could have avoided this, how could I have hired better. So the hiring is a huge process.
Well, those were two really good ones. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just, everybody on the show, the number one challenge has been staff, and
hmm,
it keeps changing. Definitely there's a before COVID staff and then after COVID staff.
yeah,
It's markedly different now, and
yeah,
it just is what it is.
yeah.
And that's why AI is coming on board, and hopefully it's going to help us, not avoid staff, but all the repetitive tasks that drive you
I
crazy.
know.
Someone
Yeah.
do them. And apparently nobody wants to do them, so let AI do them. That's how I'm.
Yeah, I actually it's been helpful because I run things through Claude or
Yeah,
ChatGPT. I'll
yeah.
say, look, I want to create a training manual and I wanted to do it in this pattern. And I
Mm,
start feeding it some of my documents and then it spits out a really, really good training manual. And I
unbelievable.
have to edit some of it, but it still has given me the framework. So yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I've noticed though are a lot of the first place you want to go are the phones. And I'm just saying, as a consultant, um, you don't want to. Those are hot leads. When somebody picked up a
Yeah.
phone, that's a hot lead. Nobody needed to pick up a phone. They could have filled out your web form. They could keep DMing you. They could email
Hmm.
you. They could do anything but pick up the phone. And so
Hmm.
I'm very careful about that. I would say get better at triaging calls, but certainly if someone's picked up the phone and they're finally ready for cosmetic surgery or having that discussion, I
Yeah.
wouldn't give that away. They're
Yeah.
human beings. So I would try
Hmm.
to figure that out faster than
Yeah.
something else. So let's talk about marketing because you're in a super competitive area. Uh,
Hmm.
how are you differentiating yourself?
Well, so I think one of the things that I kind of, with my consultations is our consultations are long. They're usually about an hour long. I like to know my patients really well. One of the things I'll hear from some of the patients who find me, they'll say, well, I didn't feel like they spent time with me at these other consultations. It'd be like a 5-minute thing, and then
Mm,
they're in, and then they're out, and then that's the recommendation. As opposed to how we like to do it here is they submit their photos, we get their information. I review the photos, give them a preliminary recommendation, and then tell them, look, it could change when you come in. When they come in, I want to get their whole story. I want their journey. I want to see photos of themselves from like 10 to 15 years ago. And I really want to understand what's bothering them because part of the reason why they're here is it didn't happen just overnight, right? It was probably years in the making. They've been thinking about this. There's so many questions, their anxiety, it's their face. So trying to speed this up in like a 5-minute consultation is not correct. And so it's really getting to know the person and knowing why they're here and what's bothering them. So that's important to me. That's what I think differentiates me above everybody else. But in addition, I think part of my what I love about what I do is that I have a great community of women supporting other women. So I love that my patients they found me from me being authentic and they love to give back. So I'll have patients who are in the hyperbaric chamber and they'll start like sharing numbers, giving out information, and then they end up becoming friends and then saying, oh, I want to share my journey too. I want to share my photographs. I want to share my story. So I think that's one thing that's been unique about what I do and sets me apart from other people is that what you see on social media, what you see of my patients, they are all authentic stories. We've never paid anybody for those stories. And I love that those are my patients trying to give back. So yeah.
Nothing is more important in today's world than social proof that's credible. And if you can get a patient to do all the talking You just stay out of it. Let them
Hmm.
tell their story, their journey, their results, their ecstatic. Um, just if they can't get over how transformative it was for them.
Hmm.
You have done a very good job getting them to do that or
Yeah.
encouraging them. Any secrets on how you're getting so much of that? Because you've got a lot of patients on video and on photos, and everyone else says, "Oh, my patients are so private," but then you're
Yeah.
able to do it.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is because they've seen a lot of my other patient stories, and everybody's been so giving. But I think part of it, they can feel that authentically from my whole team. We're all about what can we do for the patient. So we're all about they are the most important person, and they feel it. And then they also see that when I'm going through the consultations, if they haven't seen my videos yet, I usually encourage them to watch the videos. It gives them an idea of what the journey is going to be like, how the recovery process is going to be like. And then they say, well, how come I saw this where it looks like they looked great at 1 week? I said, that's not the norm. Let me give you what my patients see. Now, I can't speak for other surgeons, but this is what I do. And this is what the outcomes look like. And this is what the recovery looks like. So it's always going to be as authentic and giving of myself. And if I see that the patient, when they start seeing these videos, they're like, wow, that got inspired by that person sharing her journey. And so the day of surgery is usually when we finally, if they've gone through the whole process, they've gone through the hyperbaric chamber, my nurse manager, when she's bringing them in for the surgery, and they're in there, they're gowned up, and they say, and she asks them, would you like to be a journey patient? And you'd be surprised how many people
Nice.
agree to be a journey patient. And it's usually the patients who see it that they're like, oh, yeah, I want to give back. They've seen it from other patients, they want to give back. So,
I love that. I'm just wondering, does it throw them off? Like, did they need time to think about it? Or was that the whole point? It's nice and impulsive where they're excited or
yeah, I think that it's not like it throws them off because some people will just say, I'll think about it. And that's
right?
okay. You never know if somebody's going to be gung ho.
Mhm.
Sometimes we've been so surprised. We have a patient who's so anxious leading up all the way to the surgery, has backed out a couple times, come back in. And then the day of surgery, she's so excited and she goes, I want to be a journey patient. And you're
Uh,
like, oh, okay.
all
So
right.
you never know. And even then, after the surgery, sometimes they're on the fence. And then after surgery, they see their result. They see
Right.
their before and after photo, and they're like, I want to share my story. And I'm like, great.
Right.
So it's all about asking. You just have to ask. You can't say, oh, I think this person's going to be private, unless they've said that from the very beginning. I don't want any of my photos shared anywhere. I go, got it. I respect your privacy. So
Even then, those are the ones who also change later on too, because they
yeah,
find to know you, they're more comfortable, and they love the
exactly,
result, and they're dying to help you back.
exactly.
Especially women, we do love to give back. Oftentimes, I've used it as can you do me a favor kind of thing.
Hmm.
But I love that idea. It's like you call it the journey. What the
The journey patient.
yeah,
Yeah,
the journey patient. So
yeah.
do you know that lingo? Like I want to be a journey.
Yes,
I think that is fantastic.
they do. They
Yeah.
do. Yeah, yeah,
Because if they've seen other patients doing it, because we are definitely followers. Like if I see you do it, then I'll do it.
yeah.
But you've done a great job with the video education, and the patient proof has been fantastic. I just love
Thank you.
when patients do the educating for you when it's their turn,
Yeah,
because they're going to
right.
see it from their point of view. You're going to see it from your point of view. It doesn't get better than that. So tell me, social media, you're doing a good job. You've got like 40,000 Instagram followers. How much time are you spending on that? Is it a
Ugh,
job or
yeah, it's a necessary time crunch on my schedule. I spend about 1 day a week. So on Sunday, so this is my weekend, I usually carve out like half of the day on Sunday and I'll go over videos and go over video ideas. So I film probably about twice a month on
okay?
those Sundays. And then, of course, we have our journey patients. So there's some video editing that has to happen. So my team currently consists of my video editor, and then I have my practice director, and she does all of the she knows my voice really well at this point. So she reviews the videos and makes sure that the messaging is really sticks with what we want for the practice. But I do all of my responses. So I'll look at the comments, I read all the comments, the questions that come through, and then I compile them later. So I have an executive assistant that kind of compiles all the questions and the answers that I submitted to those questions. And so we have a bank, and that helps us to create new content for the page.
Nice.
Yeah.
So because you're doing Instagram, that means you're not local. You can be anywhere you want to be. Do you find that has changed the demographics and people are coming in from further away now that you've gotten?
Yeah, absolutely. I think before I was ready for it, I was starting to have patients call from different parts of the country. And now we have a robust way of handling traveling patients. So we get probably every week, we have one traveling patient a week. And it's usually on a Wednesday that I operate on my traveling patients. But they've seen it. And now I create content just for the traveling patients. But when it initially came through, the first thing they would say is, "Oh, I've been watching her videos on YouTube and I want to really meet her." And the first time we get on a video consultation, they act like I'm a star. I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm
you
just
are.
I'm just like any other surgeon here. But they act like, "Oh my God, I'm so excited to meet you." And it's fun. It really is fun.
Absolutely get celeb status when people see you on a screen. And it doesn't matter what
Yeah.
size the screen is, and they're watching you and
Yeah.
it elevates big time. Isn't it much better
Yeah.
to go to a consult when somebody says, "Oh my God, I'm meeting you"? Like, oh,
Yeah.
this is
And they
great.
know so much already. So there's not much that I have to say. Or so when they say, "So what do you think?" I tell them, they go, "That's what I thought you'd say." you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So give me a crazy staff or patient story you care to share.
Oh, okay. Let me tell you about. So before I was hiring on our own, where we had our own system, and we use Indeed, to find staff and our team members. I was using an agency, so we were using a temp agency, and that would be to help find the role. Then, with them being in the role for a while, you pay a premium, right? That was one of the recommendations that I got from Dr. Peter Adamson, who's now since retired, but previous president of the AFPRS. He was very helpful as a mentor, and he said, "Look, if you're struggling finding time to hire, find a temp agency. They can fill in the role, and then you can try this person out before you fully hire them." Well, so we found one person for the front this way, and note to self is like, do your due diligence, even if they're through an agency. First week, we had this program with, when they used to have these Visa card promotions with some of the injectables, they would have a promotion. They'd give out a Visa card of like $50 or whatever, right? Well, we were having a patient call back and saying, "Hey, the Visa card isn't working. It's already been used." We're like, "Well, that's weird." And then the next week, I came back from surgery and they said, "Oh, our new person had to leave." I said, "Why?" "Well, she was red around the mouth and she said she had been vomiting so frequently last night." And I was like, "Huh, that sounds funny." "So she was peeling?" "Yes." I said, that's, that sounds like retinol. Can you check the skincare inventory?" So they checked the skincare inventory and we were missing 3 or 4 products. And then it was immediately like, okay. Great thing that was an agency. We just immediately told them this is not going to work out.
Yeah.
And then after the fact, this was like a week or two later, we found her profile on LinkedIn quoting that she was our surgical coordinator, that she had worked with me for a year.
Oh my God.
Absolutely like, yeah. So you never know. You have to do your due diligence.
Half the time, how do you even know?
Yeah,
I'm
I know. Well,
you're
we don't know even if her resume was real, right? So,
right.
but we didn't do the reference checks. And so that's why it's important to do your reference checks.
I don't even the reference checks. They seem odd to me unless um because obviously they're going to give you the references they want. What I like to do have the surgeon go talk to the other surgeon who they came from. If there's any way you surgeons can talk, that's
Yeah.
help.
Well, I think that's hard in California. There's some rules about that. So we have a HR attorney that we have on
No.
retainer, and it's very, you know, you have to
Okay.
be very careful what you can ask in a reference check too. That's the thing that you learn about in California that might not be true in other states. California is very strict. But one
Yeah.
of the most important things is that when you do your interview, you ask the applicant, "So, who was your boss? who oversaw you, and tell me, what would they say about you? How would they rate you? And when I talk to them, what would they say about you? So you're already telling them, I'm going to be talking to your reference. And if they have any qualms and they give you the wrong information, or they say, I don't want you to talk to them, that's a red flag. Unless, of course, it's where they're currently working. I can understand that. But previous ones, they should have no problem giving you it unless there's some problems.
Well, I know when I've been working with certain practices and they'll say, I'm thinking about hiring somebody, and I'll say, I happen to know, I know who they work for. So I'll just text the doctor and I'll say, just tell me this. Would you hire them back again? Yes.
Yeah.
And they'll say, absolutely not. And, and I just say to the other doctor, it's probably a no-go. Because
that's a good question to ask.
Yeah, just that they keep you out of trouble. Just would you hire? Yeah. So tell us something interesting we don't know about you.
Well, so I am a avid outdoor enthusiast. People don't know that about me, but it's funny because I'm in facial plastics. I have to protect myself from the sun. And I used to be an avid cyclist. So I would be outdoors. I'd be snowboarding in the winter, cycling in the summer. And I introduced cycling actually to my brother. And one year, my brother passed away from a cycling accident. And for his memory, I thought, okay, I really want to continue cycling, until I had a crash and had a concussion that same year, 2 concussions, one from a snowboarding accident and one from the cycling accident. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. My mom saw me visiting me in the hospital because they life flighted me for this accident. And to this day, I have this scar on my cheek that looks like a dirt patch. And so when I go on camera, sometimes I'll have people who will say, look at that. She doesn't know how to put on her makeup. It looks like a smudge crease. And I'm like, oh my God, this is all from this fall. Right. And it just happened from, and so that itself, I know that this scar is a constant reminder of that. But I will say that, it has taught me a lot. I don't cycle anymore, but my health is very important to me, and I'm not as much of a daredevil anymore. I do more safe sports as a result.
And I don't know why you're not mentioning it, but you have a twin.
Yes, I have a twin sister.
How much fun is that? Is it fun to have a twin?
It's funny. We were so close, hip to hip, all the way through college, medical school. We went to the same medical school. She has 2 kids. Life takes us in different trajectories. She is always saying, oh, I look up to you, how you're able to run this practice. She's like, wow, you have this whole business. And then I look to her and I go, well, look at you. You're working from home. You've got this freedom. You got your kids. We just run 2 different lives now. But yeah, we both look at each other and envy each other's lives.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh, that's human nature too. But how fun would it be? Like, I've had a sister who I was like, she was 12 years difference, but so close. I mean, God, it's so great to have somebody who knows you really well and laughs at jokes 20 years ago, It's funny when people hear her on the telephone, they'll do a double take. So if my team picks up the phone and she's calling, they're like, Dr. T? No. Do you look alike as well?
Huh?
Do you look alike as well?
No, we look more like sisters. So we're fraternal. So, but we sound so much alike. So when she gets on the phone, you would not be able to tell. And so if we got on this video here, she could be talking right next to me. You wouldn't know that it's her talking. So.
All right. So if anyone wanted to get to know you, your website is facesbydrt.com and is also your Instagram handle, facesbydrt. Yeah?
Yes.
All right. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much
It's been a pleasure talking to you, Catherine.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Everybody, that's going to wrap it up for us today. If you would kindly review and subscribe to Beauty in the Biz so we can expand our audience. And then if you've got any questions or feedback for me, please leave them on my website at KatherineMaley.com, or you can certainly DM me on Instagram at KatherineMaleyMBA. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon. Top plastic surgery practices convert more than 80% of their consultations into surgery. Now, the difference usually isn't better patients, it's a better and more strategic consultation structure. Here's the real issue. You're already paying to generate those consults through marketing, staff, and overhead. But if your coordinator is not professionally trained to guide patients through the decision process, many of those qualified patients walk out the door never to be heard from again. That's lost revenue you've already invested to attract. So if you want your practice performing at the level of the top tier, invest in the people responsible for converting consultations. Learn more at convertingacademy.com.